Good job, man.
Yeah, that was fun. Thanks, man.
Did you get it all off your chest?
No, I
What's
got,
missing?
I got more,
What do we
man.
miss? So tell me, I meant to ask you, but I forgot. I wrote it down, but I forgot to ask you. Will there be an election?
Ooh, interesting question.
Let's cover a little bit of anti-Semitism,
Okay.
Palestinian
Yep.
stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, the
Yep.
border, the fact that probably no election happening, and everyone wants there to be a civil war for some reason, but maybe it's all just a big beat up.
There you go. Between that and my couple topics, yeah, we've got a show. So. Okay, so welcome back to the Hey Ed channel. So today I've got a treat for you guys. So as some of you might know, I've got a really good friend in Australia, Rob Bruss. And, this year we had a podcast where, we met every day, 5 days a week. We did a podcast sometimes for 2 hours. And we talked about everything under the sun. And so this is where Rob and I like to indulge ourselves. We like to take some topics that we want to talk about, and we just exhaustively delve into it. And it's been a few weeks since we've done it. And I thought, to start the year off, so in this video, guys, we are going to talk about what's on our mind, and we are going to delve into it. For those of you out there, I hope that you watch the video, enjoy it. This is the kind of video where you should just sit back, get your cup of coffee, turn off your cell phone, and just be a fly in the wall and enjoy the conversation. And we have a few topics in mind, and we'll try to stay away from that electric fence as much as we can. But Rob and I tend to, we tend to speak our mind, so you never know what's going to happen. So I hope you enjoyed the conversation. So, hey, Rob, good to see you, man.
Yeah, good to see you, Ed. I'm looking forward to doing this one, man. It has been indeed a couple of weeks since we've done this, so I'm looking forward to getting into today's show and discussing these important topics. And for the people out there that might be wondering why we kind of dialed that back and haven't been doing or haven't done that, it's not because we need a break. It's because we actually don't want to get ourselves in trouble. And if you want to be here on YouTube, you've got to abide by the YouTube terms and conditions, which are completely fine with me, which means you can't talk about certain things and you can't behave in a certain way. So I figured that I was sailing a little bit too close to the sun quite often. And I figure if you do that for a long enough amount of time, you're going to get burnt eventually. So, yeah, I guess we've got to modulate what it is that we're doing. And today we'll modulate that for you, but we'll get you the message across, albeit in a cryptic sort of way.
Yeah. Well, the good thing is, unlike a podcast, which we're live, and by the way, if you want to watch some of those videos, if you go to my YouTube channel and click on the live button, I got a bunch of those conversations recorded. So you guys can go back and watch them. And I think you should if you find this kind of thing interesting. But this is a YouTube video which I am recording. This is not live. So just so you know, Rob, if I have to, I can edit. If we grab that electric fence too hard, I can edit it out. So we're okay. All right. So topic number one, I think Rob and I are pretty well versed on. So we like to, flex our intellectual muscles, so to speak, on topics. So first one I'd like to delve into is what's going on in Israel, Palestine, maybe a little bit about Ukraine, and the nonsense and the garbage surrounding it, the noise, the media bias, and all the rest of it. Rob and I are pretty opinionated, so if we offend some of you out there, I don't know what to say. So be it.
What I say to that is, listen in. You might learn something.
Yeah.
And I don't always agree with the people that I'm watching on YouTube either, but I still watch it. And I watch it because I want to see what the other people are thinking, because I'm not always right. And I'm happy to eat a piece of humble pie. The first thing I want to talk about is all the wars that are going on and the expansion of the war into the Red Sea. There's a lot of scuttlebutt in mainstream media out there about the Navy not being able to handle the Houthis. And they consistently and continuously say the wrong things. They constantly say the US Navy was attacked by an anti-ship ballistic missile. A ballistic missile is one that goes up like a rocket and outside of the atmosphere and rains down on you. The Houthis are not firing anti-ship ballistic missiles. In fact, to my mind, there's no such thing as an anti-ship ballistic missile. But every single day, the media is actually perpetuating that lie. But that is coming from the Pentagon. And the Pentagon spokespeople are saying anti-ship ballistic missile. Words matter, folks. And the reason that that matters, to my mind, the only anti-ship ballistic missile that's out there is like the DF-13 hypersonic glide vehicles that the Chinese have developed to keep the US aircraft carriers at bay. And the reason that they developed the ballistic missile is because it has such a huge range. So when you fire the rocket straight up and it gets outside the atmosphere, the trajectory that it follows can go a really, really long way. So you can fire the thing a couple of 1,000 miles. And the Chinese developed the hypersonic glide vehicle. So you can't predict, it doesn't go in an arc like this. The glide vehicle releases from the re-entry vehicle and it can actually fly and maneuver, which in theory makes it very difficult to shoot down because the radar can track it and the missile can lock onto it. But as the missile is locked onto it, it just goes like that and moves out of the way. And trying to hit a bullet with a bullet at 25 times the speed of sound is next to impossible. It's been done many, many times before. And the Israelis have demonstrated that in the last 6 months with their, and they have fired ballistic missiles at them, and the Israelis have shot them down with their version of theater ballistic missile defense, and it's worked, and it's worked incredibly well. And on the American side, they've done that several times before. So we see the enemy drifting into a hypersonic realm, and there's actually no such thing as hypersonic. There's only such thing as supersonic. So again, when you hear these analysts and these pundits saying all of this language, the reality is they've never sat at a console and tracked a missile. They've never sat at a console and tracked an aircraft coming in at them at 1.5 times the speed of sound at 50 feet with the terrain following radar. They have no idea what they're talking about. And there's been some reporting in the last maybe 3 to 5 days that the Iranians have moved their navy into the Red Sea. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. What is the what is the ship that went in there? And no joke, Ed, it's something from the late 1960s and maybe early 1970s. It's like first generation technology. These guys would have such a terrible radar they couldn't even see you. You could fire a Mark 46 torpedo at the thing from a helicopter from 5 miles away and it wouldn't see it. They wouldn't know what hit them. They wouldn't know what's coming. So make no mistake, ladies and gentlemen, the US Navy is the most formidable fighting force on the world's ocean. There is nothing more lethal, deadly, or scary than that. There's nothing that they can't defend against, and there's nothing that they can't stop. And when you've got a bunch of ragtag militia in a desert running around in man jammies and skirts, firing missiles from some other country, the minute we take away their ability to do that and get rid of that infrastructure, all of that bullshit will go away. And you'll see in the next maybe 2 to 4 weeks, the British Air Force in there with their Typhoon, their F-35, HMAS Queen Elizabeth down there, and you will see a couple of carriers down there. And in an afternoon, we'll shut them down. They shot 4 out of 5 of the boats, and they sunk them all with a machine gun. So that's like the very bottom run of technology that we have on a warship. And it's not even on a warship, it's on a freaking helicopter. And this is big giant beat up that the Houthis are going to start World War III. Man, this is pissing me off. I kind of had to get that off my chest.
No, I did it. Well, okay, so this brings up a question that I have that maybe a lot of other people. So we hear about these Houthis. No one ever heard about these guys, 4 months ago, and now everyone knows, about these Houthis. And of course they only exist because of Iran. This is an Iran-backed, operation. So really, it's Iran attacking us, and they're just the front people. They're just a proxy war. So my question is, these guys are like gnats. Why can't we just wipe them out? Now I know that, okay, so the Houthis are in the Sudan, and if people look on a map, Sudan is very strategically positioned there. That's where all the oil, there's like a choke point where all the oil tankers go through, and they're right there. So
you said Sudan, you meant Yemen.
Oh, Yemen. Thank you very much. Yeah, Yemen. So these guys, the only thing they have going for them is their strategic location. But like I said, these guys, they have inferior technology. They're the B team out there. So why are we putting up with this? Now, my suspicion is we have a very weak commander in chief, and he doesn't have the balls, to do what needs to be done. And he wants to play nice. He's worried about offending people.
Saudi Arabia to organize the Saudis to go and fight. I know people that had been fighting for Saudi Arabia in that conflict. I know people that I served with that were over there. And there was a bunch of them that went over there to be consultants in the UAE. And those forces were fighting against the Yemenis because you don't want, and that was one of the most brutal wars ever, man. mass starvation, millions of people dying, no food, complete destruction of all the infrastructure, but total silence. Total silence when Muslims are killing other Muslims and the complete destruction of it. There's a lot of footage floating around Telegram of several atrocities in Africa where Muslims are running around in a bunch of different countries killing Christians and killing all the infidels. And to be honest with you, man, I've just had about enough of these people. I've had enough of their stupid ideology, their stupid pedophilic religion, and I'm over it. And
Yep.
I saw a really good speech from the new Dutch Prime Minister Geert Wilders. You know that guy?
Yep.
So he's been elected. I'm not sure if he's the prime minister yet. I don't know if he's formed enough of a coalition to actually get there. Even if he hasn't, he holds the controlling element of that parliament. And I saw a speech from him. He was saying that there's 900,000 Muslims in Holland,
Oh,
and about 700,000 of them are radicalized,
yeah.
and they don't see themselves as Dutch citizens.
No.
And he said, you know what? We're going to stop everything to do with this. All the foreign funding, any foreign funding that goes to any religious place here to do with Islam in Holland, that's going to stop. And we're going to systematically shut down all of these mosques. They're all going to go away. And if you people don't like it, we'll put you on a plane and we'll send you to a Muslim country to where there's Sharia law, where you can go and live there because your values don't jive with ours. And I've had enough of these people, man, and I've had enough of their evil ideology and their ability to actually do anything to us only comes through terrorism.
Yes.
The only way they can harm us and hurt us is by
Yes.
killing innocent people.
Yep.
And I'm sick of it.
Well, and that's the question I was going to ask you about, because as far as I'm concerned, I don't consider Iran a significant military threat. These guys, they're pipsqueaks. These guys, they're nothing. Okay, but
that's an accurate description, because if you look at what they're trying to do in the Red Sea and what the Yemenis are trying to do to Israel, and what Hezbollah, which are the funded proxy of Iran, are doing in the north, they're pipsqueaks. Nothing has happened. Everything that they throw at us, in whether that's the Americans and the coalition in the Red Sea, or it's the Israelis up in the northern part of their country, everyone's like, oh, whatever, man, you fire an anti-tank guided missile. So what? Here's a JDAM. Eat that. Like,
so in my opinion, the real threat that Iran, poses is the ideology that they're spreading around the world.
Hang on, yeah, there it is.
Right. It's and they have exported their mindset throughout the world. I mean, you have UK, all of Europe, America, for Christ's sake. We bring them in with the red carpet treatment. They get on our welfare system, and we pay for them. They get checks from the United Nations. They get all sorts of support. We welcome. Talking about welcoming the wolf into the chicken pen. I mean,
the hen house. Yep.
We let them in. Not only we let them in, we encourage them to come. And Europe was at the front of all this, right?
Hold on. Europe is the front line of it all. The United Nations is the front. The United Nations are the ones that have gone around and gathered them all and brought them in an organized manner to these places. And we've seen that now. Or the veil has been lifted, and the border in the United States, there is no southern border in the United States.
Nope.
There's 250,000 people in a caravan about to come to the border there. And they could just close the gates and go, no, you don't. They could just do that. But they're not doing that. They're opening the gates. I saw footage the other day of some border guards moving the barbed wire out of the way to let these people in.
Yeah.
It's like the whole reason the barbed wire is there to stop them from coming in, but you're moving it out of the way to let them in. And these are people in uniforms, for heaven's sake. And all of that is being well documented now. It's funded by the United Nations. The United Nations is systematically destroying the United States.
Yes.
They've done it to Europe, but they're doing it to you now.
United Nations, not only are they useless, they're an active evil empire coalition in the world, and they're no friend of America. They're no friend of any freedom-loving country. This is a cabal of shithole countries who want to take America down a peg. But before they take us down, they want to bleed us for everything they can get out of us. They're very happy to take our the food we send them and financial aid we give them, while at the same time disparaging us at every opportunity. And we're suckers. What chumps, we are. We should completely defund. America should not be giving the UN any more money. It's not doing us any good.
Get out of the UN, get out of the WHO, get out of the World Bank, get out of anything that has a world connotation to it, because there's never going to be a one world government. The countries, people are too independent. Never mind countries, individuals are too. I don't want to be part of a one world government and planet Earth. Like, I want to be an Australian. You want to be an American.
Hey, your lips to God's ear, right? You would think, right? But that's not what's been. We keep electing these liberals into office who are globalists, and they hate America, and they're doing everything they can to disparage America and take us down a peg. They don't like the idea. The WEF is the single most evil organization in the world. So all of this can be traced back to one organization and one man, in essence. We know who he is. I won't mention his name here to stay away from the electric fence, but we all know who he is. But it's not just him. But the IMF, the World Bank. What's that medical?
WHO.
WHO. These people, they're not our friends. Our Federal Reserve, as far as these guys are acolytes of the WEF. Okay, in our own government, they've all been infiltrated, and that's a word that Klaus Schwab used himself. He was very. I posted his speech a few times. That clip where he said, "I'm very proud of the fact that we've infiltrated, every major government in the world." And he used that word, infiltrated. We have infiltrated.
Hiding in plain sight, aren't they? They're really.
That's right. The arrogance of these people. And it's not like 10 years ago where they're doing all this stuff on the sly. Now they're doing it openly. They're openly telling us what they want to do, what the plans are. And the vehicles they're using primarily, their favorite vehicles are climate change and a pandemic. The pandemic, the lockdown they had us go through a few years ago during that worldwide flu. We got to be careful of the language. That lockdown is nothing compared to what's coming, people. That's going to be child play. We have much bigger lockdowns coming. We have much more draconian measures coming out of not just these three-letter organizations, global organizations, but also our own government, who's part of the global cabal. We have a lot more. So people have to start preparing. If people want to secure their personal sovereignty in any kind of way, people have to start being proactive. And my fear is that most people are still not paying attention. It's on a few counties in a few key states, and then you're going to divvy up the demographics inside of those counties. And there's going to be like, I don't know, 10 or 20,000 people who are going to be just berated with all sorts of psyops in order to get their votes. So that's what it's going to come down.
Crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's not many people.
It is. But in the end, in terms of on the Democrat side, it absolutely doesn't matter who's in office, because our current, I probably shouldn't say his name. So Mr. Bourdain, I'll make my name. Mr. Bourdain, he's not running anything. Okay. His acolytes, his WEF graduates are setting, they're writing the speeches, they're setting the agenda. So all the thing about, he's doing this and he's doing that, he's not doing anything. He's just
on that very point, I just want to point out to people that it's happening on the other side as well. You just, unless you look at this from a 500,000 foot view in space, looking down on it, you probably can't see it. But if you look at, if you know, Brandon is not actually running the country, and I think people accept Brandon's not running the show, right? So if you look on the other side, they want Nikki Haley to be the candidate. Yeah. They want to get Vivek out of the way. They want to get Trump out of the way, and they want to put Nikki Haley in there, who has been found to be corrupt.
Yep.
The minute that she left the job and goes and sets up her own weapons manufacturing company and gets the contracts from the government, even though she's been working for the government for however long, it stinks of corruption. It stinks to high heaven. And I took great delight when Vivek asked her on stage, you want to keep supporting Ukraine and keep giving American dollars to the Ukrainians so we don't end up in a war with Russia. Okay, well, can you name 3 places in Ukraine where they're fighting? And she couldn't. And she was on stage like she was about to burst into tears because suddenly it got real. And she was found wanting publicly. And it looks to me like the Uni Party are pushing for her to be at the top of the ballot and for her to be the first female president of the United States. She has all the right credentials. She says all the right things. She does all that. Yeah, because she's just a puppet. She's a puppet of the people that are funding her and the people that are actually driving it. She's not in control of this whatsoever. And anything that she says, if you listen very, very carefully to what she says, it's actually aligned to what's going on right now. And that's what I'm saying. You got to look at that really high level view. Well, so what is she saying about supporting Ukraine? She wants to keep funding them. She wants to keep doing that. What is she saying about supporting the Israelis? That's exactly the same as what's being said right now. What is she saying about border policy? What is she saying about whatever she's saying about the comments that anybody's asking her or whatever comments she's making is exactly the same as what it is now. And if you think of that, who's driving the agenda now? Well, the deep state is driving that, and the powers that be, the bureaucracy is driving that. So they're driving her as well, because she's the classic example. If I looked up on Wikipedia, or I got my old school encyclopedia here and I looked up useful idiot, I'd see a picture of her. Because she's not smart enough to actually come up with her own policies, and she doesn't understand history at all. She doesn't understand the history of the United States or the history of conflict or the 20th century or what's going on. And because of her lack of understanding there, she just whispers in somebody's ear, what should I say when they say this?
Yeah.
Hey, Nikki, this is what you should say. This is the way to say it. And she just doesn't say, well, why would I say that? That's not quite right, is it? She's not pushing back. She just says it because she's too busy, right? No, I can't do the research. That's why I've got the people there. But this is the failure of our politicians. They're out of touch.
I want to flush out one topic that last year you and I covered extensively in our lengthy conversations, which again, go to my YouTube channel, click on the list button, and you can watch some of those conversations. And that is on Ukraine. We covered Ukraine in depth, every aspect of it. And man, did we nail it all along from the very beginning. We made predictions that all came true. Everything we said, happened. And even very early on when it started, I was proclaiming that this is not a war between Russia and Ukraine. This is a war between Russia and America. Where Ukraine just happens to be a useful proxy. That's what it is. And also, it's not really a war about borders. This is a money laundering operation. A lot of people are getting
a la Nikki Haley getting rich off it. Literally. That's how corrupt it is.
There you go.
Unbelievable. Eh?
There you go. And when the war and when the event happened in Israel and the shit hit the fan, the day afterward, I was predicting, I'll bet that a lot of the weapons that's going to be going into Hezbollah and they came from Ukraine, because a lot of that money went into buying ammunition that ended up in the black market. A lot of evil, nefarious people made a lot of money on the war in their pockets, but there was also a lot of weapon merchants who got because there's no accounting. Right, the money just ends up in this black hole, black market and it's going to end up by in really bad places throughout the world. Sure enough, these weapons with serial numbers were traced back, to America, are ending up in Hamas's hands. It's been proven. So I
way too tempting for a Ukrainian like colonel to go, you know what, man? There's there's a warehouse of RPGs over there, or 84 Carlical stuffs over there. What if I just like?
And like we were joking one day, you and I, we're smart guys. We should get on a plane, go to Kyiv, and maybe buy the right guys some drinks, and we're set for life.
Gonna grease the wheels over there with.
That's right. It will be the go between the Pentagon and whomever, and a little bit of money falls out of the bag on the way to that guy. This is but. Okay, the point that we were talking about during all that time, and this is my take on it, and I want to put a bow on this. This is the opinion that I held all along, and that is that the mainstream narrative is the people are bought and paid for, but I don't think Putin is really interested in taking over Ukraine, because he sees Ukraine as a big ass buffer between the NATO countries and the border with Russia. And if he takes over all of Ukraine, if he goes right up to Lviv, all right, now he's on the border with NATO. He doesn't want that. He wants it there as a buffer. Yeah, I think he wants to shave off the corner there in the Donbass and maybe go up to the Dnieper River. So maybe we'll have, East Kiev and West Kiev, just like we have East Berlin and West Berlin in the cold. But other than that, I think he'll be happy with just a government in place that is friendly to Russia. And just to remind people of the history there, what went on. So before Zelensky, that president was Zelensky. This is a U.S. government-backed coup. Okay, we put Zelensky in power. Okay, and for our own nefarious purposes. And Zelensky said, "Yeah, Putin initially said, yeah, we're going into the Donbass to free Russians who are living."
Can I just pause you there and just let me just go and pull the bar down to the rewind. You said for their own nefarious purposes. Let me just insert brackets, child trafficking, hyphen, biolabs, close brackets. Fast forward again. Here we go.
Very good.
You gotta wonder, man.
Yeah, honestly. Listen, Ukraine has no any real strategic value for us. Yeah, they're the biggest. They're the breadbasket of a large part of the world because they lots of wheat. That's all right. They'll sell us the wheat. All right.
America's got more wheat than it can shake a stick at. We don't need any more wheat. We don't need any more wheat in Australia, right? We're not buying fucking Ukrainian wheat. Fuck off, man. Send it to Africa or India or wherever the hell you send it to. We don't care. But it's not for us. Like what our food security is not threatened by a blockage of the Black Sea. Our economic security is not threatened by the Russians owning the Black Sea, owning Crimea, owning Odessa. Our security is not threatened. What do we care about a stupid border dispute in that part of the world?
That's right.
And that's you're 1,000% correct when you say the whole thing is just a money laundering operation.
Yeah.
Because what happens is when the approvals get signed in the US Congress, the money doesn't go to Ukraine. It goes directly to the defense contracting companies. I was watching a report yesterday of some anti-drone systems that were developed here in Australia, and it was developed by a company in Canberra, and their bread and butter for the last 40 years is tracking objects as small as a 10-cent piece in space, like right, long way away, right, and optically tracking this stuff. And so some smart engineer at that company said, why are they firing $2 million Patriot missiles at $20,000 Shahed drones? Surely we can do that with a 50 cal. And they created the optics, and you can mount these systems on the back of a pickup truck. You can mount it on a tank. You can mount it on an armored vehicle. It's like a portable system. And the system only costs $1 million. But there was no Australian government contract. So this Australian company had innovated this amazing technology that does all this stuff, these anti-drone systems that stops it all. And they had this retired Australian general commenting not on that weapon system, but on drone warfare in Ukraine. And they're showing footage of FPV drones, some dude with a pair of goggles on from 10 years ago. And they're analog goggles, by the way, as well. It transmits on an analog signal so it can be jammed, but nobody on the other side has seemed to work that out. And they're flying, $1,000 drone at a $2 million tank and destroying a $2 million tank. So he's commenting and saying warfare has changed completely. Now, he's an ex-Australian general saying these things, yet the Australian government doesn't say, hey, why don't we put those anti-drone systems in Ukraine? Why don't we give this Australian company the money that they need to sustain it? No, didn't work. So completely and totally corrupt. And it just shows you that the Australian government is just whitewashing everything to say, we're with Ukraine, we support this. But the US, through a US government contract, they'd supplied 10 of these systems to Ukraine. So people don't know how this system works. So we've got this anti-drone technology. This company in Canberra goes, hey, man, we're in America. How do we get on these things? And if you go to the American White House website and the Pentagon website, they have a list of all the tenders. We're tendering for anti-drone systems for Ukraine. Okay, cool. Let's apply for that tender. They tender it and they win, and then they get 10 systems. And hey, we're off to the races. Our business has started, and off we go. We're now in the anti-drone business. Hopefully this is prolific and it can populate around the world, and it can stop all of this drone risk that's actually out there, protecting infrastructure and people and all of that sort of stuff. The Australian government doesn't support that.
Okay, so let me give you my predictions on this Ukraine stuff, and then I want to get your predictions. So for me, prediction number one is I think it'll be over by spring. I think Zelensky will be living in a condo in Miami Beach, and
He will sign the agreement with Xi Jinping on
That's
BRICS.
right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think that Ukraine will be part of the BRICS coalition, and I think rather than BlackRock getting all of these contracts to rebuild Ukraine, I think most of the contracts are going to
BRICS.
go to I think most of the contracts are going to go to China and BRICS countries. So BlackRock will be out of business. Well they'll lose that business. And remember, and that's what this is about, guys. This is about money. Okay, it's not about borders. It's not about democracy. Ukraine doesn't have fucking democracy. What are you kidding me? It's not about that. This is about the whole thing is about money, and I think that there will be a government in place that will be friendly to Russia. I don't think Russia will take over Ukraine. I think Russia will take the Donbass. Thank you very much. But Ukraine will just have I don't know, puppet government, let's say, in place.
You don't buy into the fact that if the war stopped today, that the Russians would reconstitute their forces and come back again?
No, no, I don't. I
You
think
think it would just stop where it
no, I
is?
think they'll just stop. I think what my guess is what they'll do is they'll beef up. They'll want a strong presence there along that new border. Kind of like their version of Checkpoint Charlie. They'll have people there to mind the new border. But
Mm.
then they'll let a lot of these poor Russian guys go home who don't want to be. That's my guess. But yeah. So those are my predictions on Ukraine. How about you?
Well, looking back, I can see some really big giant mistakes that were made by the media and what they were talking about, but I can also see some giant mistakes that they made militarily. And you would think that with hindsight, you can see these things, it's easy, but you think that the smart people that are there, I'm just one man, and I'm just giving it a cursory glance on a daily basis. I'm not in an operations room figuring out how to actually solve these problems. But when you remember last year, we're going to supply them with what they need to conduct a counteroffensive and take the land back. They're going to go all the way down to Melitopol. They're going to go to Tokmak. They're going to go all the way to these places, and we're going to divide them in two, and we're going to take Crimea, and it's going to be over. Yeah, all of this bullshit. And so they telegraphed everything. That's the first thing. So loose lips sink ships. And when they telegraphed it, someone in the Russian command goes, "Did you hear that they were going to try and go to Tokmak?" Some other dude goes, "Yeah, yeah, I heard that too. Why don't we just get the excavator and just dig in?" How do we dig in? I don't know, man. There's a book on my shelf there called The Russian Way of War. Fucked if I know. Get that book off the shelf and figure out how we dig in 3 lines of trenches and figure out how we do it based on someone from the Soviet system, which they did, and it stopped the Ukrainians, and it actually absorbed all of the resources. It absorbed all the artillery, all the HIMARS, all of the tanks, all the armored personnel carriers. Everything that we gave to them has been destroyed on the battlefield. Yeah, because they telegraphed exactly what they were going to do. But on the Ukrainian side, did you think that the Russians were going to stay where they are? No, they're going to keep trying to advance. Do you think one single excavator came out to dig a trench line around Advika and all of the places in the east? No. So if you want to stop the Russian advance, why don't you dig 20 miles of trenches and 20 miles of obstacles like the DMZ in North Korea? All you got to do is look to North Korea to see what the North Koreans have done. They dig a big giant trench there and fill it with oil. We dig a big giant barrier there, so we're firing down on them from the high ground if they manage to get across these obstacles. The Ukrainians are not putting obstacles in place to slow the Russian advances because the Russians can no longer take any more ground because the Ukrainians had been supplied by NATO and by us. But all of that is gone. All of the people are gone. All of the supplies have gone. Now the Russians are taking the ground. But the Ukrainians didn't dig in and put the barriers and the obstacles there to stop that from happening. They just didn't do it. So it's a categorical mistake and a tactical mistake on the battlefield for that to happen. So now the Russians can go all the way up to Kyiv and they'll take all the ground all the way up to there. And I think because Kyiv's on one side of the river, I think it will be what you said. The Russians will be on the eastern side of that, all the way to their border, and it will follow the river all the way down the bottom, and they'll own that part of Ukraine. And, can the Russians take any more ground? Yes, they'll take all of that ground because there's no more Ukrainians and there's no more support for the most corrupt government that's ever existed in human history. Zelensky is not the Churchill of the 21st century.
No.
Zelensky is a crook.
Yep.
He's a crooked dictatorial. He's a dictator. And his behavior just says to me, dude, you're the reason. You're the entire reason that this thing is come undone.
Yep.
Not some NATO guy, some Boris Johnson, some Joe Biden in your ear telling you what you should and shouldn't do. It's you. You're the corrupt one. You're the one that's unable and unwilling to come to some sort of compromise to get the Russians to feel like they're not threatened. So well, I think you're quite right about saying, let me just close the loop. You're quite right in saying this will be over by spring, which is my autumn in a couple of months' time, really. So I sort of think, will it last a couple more months? Well, I don't know. Are we still funding them? Is the EU still funding them? Are the F-16s in country yet? What's happening here? You know, and even if the Ukrainians can take the ground back, and even if their F-16 tech can actually help on the battlefield, you don't have enough soldiers to hold the ground. So we end up in this 2 steps forward, 3 steps back scenario. And the Russians are just going to keep feeding people into the meat grinder. Yeah, and they're continuing to do that. And Putin was out the other day making a joke. I can't remember the exact numbers, but he said the Ukrainians had been supplied somewhere in the vicinity of about 600 armored vehicles, including infantry fighting vehicles and tanks, about 600. And he said, they're all gone. They've all been destroyed. Yeah, and it's true, because when I look at my Telegram, I see almost no armor, and I see no infantry fighting vehicles. I see a Bradley's here and there, but I don't see hardly anything on the battlefield from that perspective. But then, and Putin then said, well, you know, we've got thousands of tanks, and we're manufacturing tanks this year, and this year we'll probably build more than 1,000 tanks. So they've destroyed everything that we've given to them so far, and now they've got the ability, the indigenous capability, doesn't need anybody else to create the armored vehicles to come back on the battlefield. So even if we could take back the ground there in Ukraine, on the Ukrainian side, and we could get there, we can't hold it. And the reason we can't hold it is because they can't take some of that money to buy an excavator to fucking dig in properly and build some proper defenses to stop all of that from happening. It just doesn't make any sense to me. And the reason it doesn't make any sense to me is because tactically and strategically, they're making these massive blunders, these massive, what would seem like mistakes. And it goes all the way back to where you started. The whole thing is not a war. It's not about borders. It's not about Putin invading Europe or the Ukrainians pushing out the Russians. The whole thing is a money laundering operation. Yep. And all of that shit that's going on in Ukraine, all of that destruction and death and the chaos that's going on there is a distraction from the money laundering operation.
Yeah, and a lot of money in those rebuilding efforts. So every time a building goes down, BlackRock pops up champagne cork. That's another building.
There is no cities left. They're all destroyed, man.
Yeah.
Seen the footage, those places are gone.
Yeah, so a lot of money. So the IMF is going to be, they've already promised, they want to make a lot of money off this war. So a lot of people want to make a lot of money off of this war, off of the rebuilding efforts. And they're going to make money off funding the war, and they make money off of rebuilding the damage after the war. So they've...
But those folks were dirt poor in the first place as well. So Ukraine not only is the most corrupt country in Europe, it's not like the most dirt poor country in Europe, despite their massive natural resources. It reminds me of Venezuela. Yeah, you know, they've got all the oil in the world, but they're the poorest country in the world, and that's because of the corruption, right? So that's how that happens. And when I see footage of these Ukrainian towns that have been completely decimated by artillery, you look at it and you go, it's just a fucking shack anyway. Now, I know it's somebody's home and all of that, and I'm not minimizing the loss of that. I'm not trying. That's not what I'm trying to do. But what I'm trying to say is, when you look around your neighborhood where you are, Ed, you know, the house and the infrastructure that is the house, the new house across the road, the new development where they knocked down the house. It took them 2 days to knock down the house. The new build of the house takes 3 to 5 months. It takes a while. It takes half a year to build a new house, and that's because that house is built to last and to stand there for the next 100 years, because the technology we have and the all of the rules and regulations, this structure will live for a very long time, but it'll be gone in one artillery hit, of course. But the point that I'm trying to make is that those houses in those villages in Ukraine, they were built in a couple of weeks. Yeah. They're not houses. They don't have the same building standards that we have. They haven't laid down a concrete slab, man. They built it on the ground, or the house is built on stilts. Like, it's just not, it's not first world. It's
No,
very,
no,
very
no.
old, and those villages have existed for hundreds of years, and people have lived in those villages as they were for hundreds of years, and now they've been completely destroyed. But now it's hard not to think that when you have to rebuild that entire village and that entire city, we have to do all that. You feel like you're doing it to Western standards and our standards, but it's not. It
No.
was never built to that standard. It was built to Soviet standards when the
Yeah.
Soviets owned it in the 20th century, and that was, yeah. So I
Yeah.
look at it and just think, man, that's why it's a money laundering operation.
Yeah.
Because to build a house here in Australia, if I want to build a decent two-story house, it's going to cost me at least 600,000 Australian dollars to build the house. It doesn't cost $600,000 in Ukraine to build a house, man. It doesn't. That would build the entire village of there because the labor is so cheap. They've got all the materials, and then but they're going to say each house costs $600,000, and
Yeah.
we have to
Yeah.
build like
Yeah.
500 houses, and they're laundering all the money. They give a little bit over there to actually build it. They do build the infrastructure, and they keep the difference for themselves. That's how it's a laundering operation. It's a scam.
Yeah, one of my favorite activities, my pastimes, is to watch travel YouTube videos and there's, places I'd like to see. Actually, Ukraine is pretty high on my list of countries that I want to see. Actually,
Mm.
so I watch lots of videos on Kyiv and Dnipro and Mariupol and Lviv and you see some of the videos of guys who are and the roads are like god awful, like in the major
Yeah,
cities.
they're dirt
Yeah,
roads, man.
yeah,
You need
yeah,
a four-wheel drive to get around
yeah,
there.
yeah. And even the ones that are paved, big time potholes. And part of the corruption is these, and this happens a lot in Africa, by the way. All this money we're pouring into Africa. Talk about corruption there too. So the contractors say, okay, we're going to give you $1 billion to build this highway from here to here, and they build the highway, and it's supposed to have a 6-inch, concrete slab to allow,
Base, yeah.
right, to handle the weight of the heavy trucks and stuff. They'll end up making one for 3 inches. But you can't tell the
And pop out
difference.
the difference.
Once you put the top layer over it, the blacktop over it, you don't know how
I
deep it
want to
is.
know.
But they don't
Yeah.
put 300, and then they charge for the 6 inches. So now if China comes in and they get all the rebuilding contracts, I think they will actually make the roads properly.
Well, that's the one belt, one road
Yeah,
scenario that they do. They don't go in there and give them the money. They go in there, negotiate the deal,
yeah,
build the port, build the road, build the bridge, whatever they're building with their labor. Yeah,
yep,
because
yep,
we've negotiated the deal. We want to actually do. That's actually the way you should conduct economics.
yep, yep.
And when you
That's it.
think about it, think about the result that would be. If I was a politician and I said, "Hey, I went to Africa and I negotiated to build a brand new international airport in Djibouti," and people would go, "Oh, well, how much money are we giving to them?" Well, we're going to build the airport. We're going to take labor here from Australia. We're going to put you there for a couple of years. If you want to come on these contracts, it creates all of these jobs. It's really good. We'll house you. We'll do all that. We build the airport. Yeah. And as a result of that, for the next 50 years, we're going to get all of these products from Djibouti. And we're going to get all of this stuff. We're going to make all of this happen. That's what the Chinese are doing.
Yeah.
Because there's a quid pro quo. And I'm not debt trapping you. That's bullshit. That's all bullshit. That's all lies by the mainstream media. It's happened a couple of times where countries have been debt trapped by China, but China don't want to debt trap
Nope.
anybody. They want to get the upside of what they're doing and the result of, we built the bridge from here to here so we could get more of our ships in there so you sell you more products. And the cost of building the bridge is far cheaper than actually trying to do all these other things. So they build the bridge. Makes
Okay,
sense.
so that's good. So let's segue then into the BRICS coalition. Okay, now for those of you out there, the BRICS is an acronym for Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. And they're the original group of countries, but now it's made up of a lot more countries than just those original 5. And they're getting larger and larger. Right now, the BRICS coalition represents 40% of the world's population. That's how big it's growing. And the primary mission of the BRICS coalition is to devalue the US dollar. Right now, the US dollar is still the world's reserve currency, but we are holding on by our fingernails. And that has huge, huge consequences to America, I think really the world, really. But it's through our policies, it's through our way of treating other countries that has driven these countries away. We have treated other countries very, very poorly. We've been bullies, quite frankly, for the past 40 years. And we're the world's reserve currency now, but we've been the world's reserve currency for about 70 years. which means we are long in the tooth in the history of world reserve currencies, right? Every country has taken turns. Other countries taking turns. Going back from Greece all the way up to Britain and then Holland and us. And so we are historically toward the end of our tenure, and our powers to be know this, and now you can argue whether the really bad policies that have led to the devaluation of our dollars is incompetence or by design. I think it is by design. I think that our powers to be, including our own government, including the Federal Reserve, they are purposely trying to devalue our dollar. Which means everyone out there, you got to pay attention to this stuff. You're going to wake up one day and your dollars are being eroded every day anyway, just through inflation. That's what inflation is. And now with the advent, now we have the Federal Reserve announcing that they're going to pivot on their interest rate policy next year. I mean, what?
This year now.
This year, yeah, right. This year, this year, and this is going to. Now a lot of people say, "Oh, well, that's good. That means mortgage rates are." You don't understand. We are heading into hyperinflation. That's what this is going to cause. So between
it's a slow moving train wreck, right?
That's speeding up.
Slow motion.
Yeah. But it's not speeding up. Now it's starting to speed up. It's not slow-mo anymore. And the BRICS countries, they want to accelerate that process of devaluing the dollar. So economically, America is toast. We cannot sustain our debt. It is impossible. I
noticed in the last couple of weeks, you've ticked over. I'm just looking on my other screen. The US debt clock has ticked over 34 trillion.
Yep.
And that they've added another $1 trillion to the debt, which, by the way, folks, if you don't know, it's like 1,000 billion to the debt. That's what's been added to it. It's just extraordinary what they've done. And that has created incredible inflation and will continue to create more inflation. And it reminds me of something you've mentioned it a couple of times. Like, it doesn't take very long for a government to create absolute and total financial chaos in a country. And it doesn't take very, very many people to actually do it either. And when you think about it, how long have the Democrats been there in government? Well, it's been like it's probably bumping up against 2 years, 2.5 years, whatever it might be since Brandon took over. And now that that's all happened, look at the history of what they've done to the debt, to inflation, to jobs, to all of the credentials that they've had. And are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? No, definitely not. But what's going to happen in the next 12 months? They're kind of pulling out all the stops, and they're going to increase that level of debt. I have a prediction here. I'll go out on a limb and say it's going to be above 38 trillion. You'll be almost. So I don't know how you call it in American football or the games that you play. But here in Australia, in rugby league and rugby union, you have a thing called a hospital pass. Do you know what that is?
No. So
if I'm playing a game and I pass the ball to somebody and that person just gets nailed, they just get creamed, right? Like you're passing the ball and that guy was always going to get smacked by the opposition. That's called a hospital pass. And it's as if the Democrats want to get the debt level to that $40 trillion mark and hand off the hospital pass to the Republicans, who are unable to do anything about it. Yeah, because once it reaches that $41 trillion level, then the amount of interest that you have to pay on those loans exceeds the actual revenue that you're collecting from the country, and there's no way to do it. And that's the complete demise of the economy. And as you know, that could happen in the next 12 months.
Yes, absolutely.
That could seriously happen.
We already cannot keep up with our bills because of servicing our debt, and it's just going to. I believe the statistic is within a year, the cost of servicing our debt is going to exceed the cost of Social Security and the Defense Department combined. And this is by design. Okay, these are people who do not like America. They want to take us down a peg. They want to impoverish America. We are too powerful. We're globalists. It's not good to be so prosperous when the rest of the world are shithole countries. That's not good. It's not moral. So they're on a mission to debase America. And not just America, by the way. You take our situation and you can superimpose it on any Western nation. Okay, so Western nations, we are debt-based economies, and Putin has been he's been laughing all the entire time about. He said, why bother invading them? They're destroying themselves.
I remember him saying early on, you can't eat money.
Yeah.
The world should be based on commodities, on oil, on wheat, on rice, and all the commodities and the things that actually matter. You're quite right when you say that if you overlay the American version of it on Western countries, it happens elsewhere. Here in Australia, we have a strange government, a strange left-leaning green government that wants to import 500,000 people to Australia in the next year. And that's the entire population of Canberra coming to Australia. I'm not sure if it's 500,000. I think it might be a bit less. But in the next year, the population of Canberra will be imported to Australia. Why? There's nowhere to house people as it is. And the cost of living here is just completely out of control. The cost of rents is just out of control. Interest rates are out of control. And you want to import more people to actually make this problem even worse? Why on earth would any economic manager in the world do something like that? Why would you, if you were working for a corporation and you were doing for that to a corporation where you were increasing the corporation's debt load for no apparent reason, then you would be let go of that job. But these people, these bureaucrats that are in charge and these politicians that are in charge are systematically destroying our economies, systematically doing it. And they're doing it on purpose, but I don't know to what end. Why do you want to destroy energy in Australia? Why do you want to destroy manufacturing in Australia and destroy jobs? Is that because you want everybody on a universal basic income? Is that because you want to completely control every aspect of our society? Are you going to ostracize people from society? There's still people today that can't go back to work because they haven't had their in them. Still today in Australia, still today, people have been removed from society because they didn't give up their bodily autonomy. It's unbelievable that that is continuing to happen. And I think we've got them on the ropes a little bit, Ed. I think people are awake to it. I look at the prepping of your mind through the mindlessness of Netflix. I don't know if you watched the movie Leave the World Behind with Julia Roberts. I don't know if you saw that. It's about the end of the world, the systematic destruction of the world.
Another one?
And yeah, it's actually pretty well done. Okay. And it's divided on by race as well. We shouldn't trust these white people. And who's behind all of this? Obama. He produced it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I heard about that movie. I heard about that. Yeah.
Imagine inserting that line. What are we doing, Dad? We shouldn't trust these white people. Like, what? What are you fucking talking about? You're the ones that are saying that we're racist. You're the most racist person on fucking planet Earth saying things like that. Why you could have had the whole movie and not even said that. Why are you antagonizing that to get people to talk about your movie? Maybe. I kind of get that. I sort of understand that makes sense to me from a marketing perspective to kind of fire people up and see what's all the fuss about, what's all this about. But it's a pretty accurate depiction of society. And there's a line in that movie that reminds me of what you said. And you've said this often, and in the last year and all the podcasts that we've done in the last year, there's more than 200 of them, that you got to pay attention to this stuff. You must pay attention to what's going on. And there's a line in the movie where the protagonist, the father character, comes up against the prepper. So his son is hurt and his son needs help. So he comes up against this prepper and he's pleading with him, please, my son needs medicine. My son needs medicine. And he's like, no, I can't give you anything. Bad luck. It's not my problem. Go away, piss off. And he's got a shotgun and he's standing on the front porch. Get off my property, get out of here. And he's like, please, I'm pleading with you. What would you do? You just said a second ago, you'd do anything to protect your family. Please. I'm a useless man. Without my mobile phone, without my GPS, I'm useless. And I thought to myself, that is just so accurate. Most people are completely and totally freaking useless. They don't give any attention to any of these things, which are really important, because all of a sudden, as you say, this year in 2024, it's going to come home to roost for you.
Yep. Yep.
And if you're not paying attention to it, if you're not, you'll be like, shit will happen to you, and you'll be like, what's going on? How has this happened? Why are they doing that? Why do I have to do that again? What do you want me to do again? Why? And that's because you paid no attention, and you gave it no level of importance.
Yep.
And I think that that's a categorical mistake. Let me ask you, Ed, of all the chaos that's going on, what do you see as the big thing for 2024? What do you think, is there going to be, I don't want to say black swan, but what do you think is the thing that's going to cause the most chaos and affect the most number of people?
Yeah, it's going to be the financial system falling apart. We're going to see another round of banks going bankrupt. And a lot of people are going to lose their money because the FDIC, they've run out of tricks. And so we're going to see another round and it's going to be a big one. And that's fine by the Federal Reserve. Matter of fact, they're promoting this not in public, but they want to get the banking system down to a manageable 3 or 4 or 5
number of banks.
That's it. So we got about another 3,400 banks to put out of business. So I think this year there's going to be huge financial chaos in the world, and that's what is going to most directly affect people. Right, because people are going to go to the bank one day. People are going to wake up one day and their bank is going to be insolvent. And that's the way it's going to happen. By the way, it's not going to be a slow moving train. When your bank goes under, there aren't going to be any warning signs because they can't afford to give you a warning sign because otherwise you'll make a run on the bank. So it's got to be an overnight event. You'll wake up and you will not be able to get your money out of the bank. And then
on a Friday.
Then you're gonna be one of those people who doesn't have money in that bank to say, "Oh boy, I better get money out of my bank before it comes over here." And then you're gonna be too late. If you wait a couple of hours, it's gonna be a cascading effect. It's gonna happen fast. So number one, get your money out of the bank. Okay, put as much money you can into gold and silver, and establish streams of passive recurring income, which has been our mantra. On our channel, on our podcast, the entire space, right? That's been our mantra. Get your money out of the bank, put your money into gold and silver, and establish streams of passive recurring income. I'll throw one more in here for you. I do think that ironically, so the two asset classes that will benefit from financial chaos, so a little bit of free opinion here of I'm not giving advice, I'm not financial advisor, but a little free, opinion here, is that the two asset classes are going to benefit from the financial chaos are going to be gold and silver, okay, your precious metals, and Bitcoin. I think Bitcoin is going to be seen as a serious alternative to people when they see their dollars losing value at an accelerated rate. They say, well, I think Bitcoin is going to be seen as an even more legitimate option for people. So I think Bitcoin, gold, and silver are going to be the obvious winners. Now, real estate. Now, a lot of people say, well, what about real estate? Okay, I kind of get the logic behind real estate. Okay, yeah, it's a hard asset. I personally don't like real estate because and I think this year, as the financial crisis unwinds, real estate is going to take a really big hit. And if you're interested in real estate, my guess is you're going to have some bargains pretty soon.
Yeah, just check fire for about 6 months, and then you'll be able to buy the lot.
Yeah, especially if you preserve your money in gold, preserve it in this. Then I think you'll be in a really strong position. Now, if someone
swap the gold price rallies, now swap your asset out of gold into that physical asset of the property, you have far more buying power. Yeah, just check fire for a couple of months, and you've been saying that for a while, and you said wait till the middle of next year, meaning 6 months into this year, then that's where it's actually going to go. I think, have you got any more? Did you want to close that thought? Because I got one that I think affects everybody as well.
I'll just say to follow up, to add to that, if anybody out there wants to find ways of establishing streams of passive recurring income, reach out to Rob or I. We have programs to help you do that. We can't help you with the first thing, getting your money out of your bank. You either do that or you don't. But as far as acquiring gold and silver and establishing streams of passive recurring income, we can help you with those. That's it. So what was
absolutely. Yeah, my one is the terrorism thing. I've seen in the last, it's just a upside down fucking clown world we live in, man. And the reason I say that is that there's just literally millions of Muslims around the world all killing each other right now, and nobody's protesting anti-Pakistan flags in front of the Sydney Opera House. Where are the Pakistanis that live here in Australia? Why aren't they in front of the Opera House going, "What are you doing?" Or where are all the Afghan immigrants that we saved from Afghanistan? Why aren't they at the Opera House protesting against the Pakistani government? Because they've ejected all of the Afghans out. Get out. Get out. That's what they said. Get out. Don't pass go. Don't collect $200. There's no more freeloading here in our country. Piss off. Get out. There's nobody protesting about the Janjaweed militias in Sudan killing hundreds and hundreds in the thousands of people in that country. No one protesting. And I just see gross anti-Semitism on these university campuses in the United States. I see anti-Semites everywhere in the Australian government, everywhere. It's disgusting.
Yeah.
And they're the most racist, disgusting, vile people on planet Earth.
Yep.
It's just horrendous how they've behaved. And, it wasn't until I was maybe in my mid-20s where I heard of the concept of Holocaust deniers. What? People said that didn't happen. You're denying that happened? There's October 7th deniers. People saying that didn't happen.
Yeah.
And they're not from Hamas. They're regular, normal people like you and me saying that didn't happen. And the feminists saying that the sexual assaults didn't happen and the rapes didn't happen. They're just flat out saying, no, there needs to be an investigation. That never happened. But there has been an investigation. The Israelis took those women to the hospital and said she'd been raped. And here's the forensic, here's all the evidence. But these people are still saying, no, there's been no investigation.
They're fucking videos. They're fucking videos.
Exactly. I've got all the videos. I can show them to you if you want to see them.
What evidence? What investigation?
So it's very strange to me that we have these really strange, really strange leftists that are available to do that. But I can tell you that if I walked down the street here and said to a girl, hey, can you put this hijab on your head? And can you wear this Muslim getup and cover yourself up because you're supposed to be modest? And here in Cronulla, you're walking around in a bikini. I think that you should cover up. Yeah, because the only person that should see your body is your husband. Cover up. And if I make them cover up from head to toe so they can only see like this because they're wearing a hijab and niqab and they're wearing everything like that, are they going to do that? No. But that's what they want for our societies. These Geert Wilders in Holland says that there's 900,000 of those people in his country and 700,000 of them are radicalized. And here in Australia, we have that at scale as well. They're the most disgusting, vile people that exist.
Yep.
And that's free speech. If you don't like what I'm saying, bad luck. I don't like Islam. I don't like these people. And the reason that I don't like these people and I don't like that religion, it's the most disgusting pedophilic religion that's ever existed. And I've seen it with my own eyes. I've seen the pedophiles with my own eyes. Why is it called a bum boy? A bum boy on every dhow in the Middle East. When I was in the Persian Gulf in the Middle East, there's a bum boy. You look through the big eye binoculars, you look and you can see the little child on there. That child is the sex object on those boats. We've seen against it. Talk to people that have been in Afghanistan and see all the pedophiles in Afghanistan and all the pedophilic activity that's gone on in Afghanistan. Has that got anything to do with Islam? I don't know, but you certainly allow it. It certainly is allowed. And you go and marry off your 12-year-old daughter to some 40-year-old man. What the fuck is wrong with you? Your religion and your ideology doesn't match with Western values. That's why I don't like you. And any Palestinian supporter out there, I ask you, what are you doing here? If you support them, go and fight. Go and fight. If you believe in believe in their ideology, go and live in Saudi Arabia or go and live in Afghanistan. Fuck off out of here, man. I'm sick of it. Because if you ask an Islamic person or a Muslim, fuck, I don't even know what to call them. I just despise these people. I fucking despise them. And the reason that I despise them so much is because the thing that pisses me off the most about it is this. If you ask them, how do you see yourself? If I asked you, Ed, how do you see yourself? Most people will probably say, I'm a dad first. Yeah. I'm a partner next. And then I am whatever profession that you do. And would you describe yourself as an American patriot? Yes. Would you describe yourself as an Australian patriot? Well, once upon a time, yes. But I'm led by fools. So no, I don't jive with that anymore. But if you ask a Muslim what the number one priority in their life is, they'll tell you it's an imaginary sky god that allows all of this, that says that Jews need to be destroyed and they need to have their homeland back, that actually advocates for murder and destruction.
Mm-hmm.
Forget about the fact that they're Jews, just of other people. That's what they want for you. And their religion sees you, that if you're not one of them, you're an infidel. And in their minds, infidels can all be killed, and all infidels must die. So I think that that's the number two thing. I think you're bang on by saying the financial system is the thing that's actually going to affect every single person on planet Earth. But I think this terrorism thing actually goes a step further, because if the conflict in the Middle East widens its footprint and the Israelis have pulled a bunch of people out of Gaza and they're now saying, oh, we're sending them back into the economy. Bullshit. You're sending them north to Lebanon because that front's about to open up. And pretty soon you're going to open that up in Syria as well, because the Syrians are going to get involved, and then the Iranians are going to get involved proper. Now we've widened this war, we've widened this conflict, yeah, and that's going to come home to our shores, because those people, if you think for a second that those people are not in our community, you're wrong, because they're on the news protesting on the weekend, running around with Palestinian flags, saying that October 7th didn't happen, saying that Israeli Apache gunships killed more people than Hezbollah. Well, if Hezbollah were never there, that would never have happened. So what are you talking about, you fool? For some reason, we have the biggest fools in the world running our governments. The Australian Prime Minister, there's footage of the Australian Prime Minister at protests when he was younger, supporting the Palestinian cause. But he doesn't know anything about the history of it. But he's there as a leftist, greenest fucking hippie wannabe, and now he's in charge of the country. And I'm just going, my mind boggles at the stupidity and the idiocy of it. And Muslims, their culture, their lifestyle, it doesn't jive with Australian and Western values. Leave. Go and fight for Hezbollah. Go and fight for Hamas, or just shut up. Shut up and assimilate into our society and be a contributing member of our society. It should be completely outlawed that you're allowed to wave the Palestinian flag. Have you ever noticed? I'll close with this thought. The Palestinians have never asked for a country. Why is that? Why are they asking for a state? What's the difference between a country and a state? Well, the state denotes that somebody's in charge of the state and somebody has authority over the state. And Hamas will be in charge of that. And now 70% of people in the West Bank support Hamas. So is the West Bank going to be next to go? Because all of those Palestinians there believe that the Jewish state shouldn't exist as well, because they support Hamas. And the number one thing of the Hamas charter is to get rid of Israel completely. So 70% of the people in the West Bank want that. And more than 70% of people in Gaza want that as well. And then all the people in Hezbollah in the north want that as well. And in Iran and in Syria and in Yemen, like, I don't know, man. There's something going on here. If you wanted to have autonomy and freedom, wouldn't you want your own country? Why do they only want a state? I'm going to leave the audience with that, and I'll let you Google it. Go Google it and find it for yourself, because it's pretty interesting why they don't want that, because they lose autonomy and control.
Yeah. Okay, so I got a couple of comments, and then I've got a question for you. Okay, so first of all, just make no mistake, Islam is not a religion.
No, it's an ideology.
It's and like you said, it's a pedo death cult. Okay, it is not a religion. So when people say, "Oh, well, the three major religions, Christianity, Judaism, Islam is not a religion." Okay, it's like 500 years old, and their motto is to grow their following through violence. That's why, on the Saudi Arabian flag, you see two swords crossed. This is how, okay, and these people are not interested in adopting Western values. Okay, so my question to you is, I know what I would do to address that exact issue. Well, I'll tell you, and then I'll ask you, what you would do. Okay, so I would have a policy. First of all, after I close the fucking border, cinch it up nice and tight. After I did that,
I'm going to sign that into law when I'm president for a day.
yeah, I would start expelling these guys like crazy.
Where would
And
you send them though?
their country of origin, where you come from, you go back. Or maybe I'll make a deal with the Mauritius or something. Hey, we'll give you $10 billion. We're gonna dump all these people, on you or whatever. To pay them off. But no, they send them back to their country of origin. And they say, yeah, but my kid is born here, so he's an American citizen. That law is gone. Fuck that anymore. No more of that bullshit. No more, child tourism, birth tourism. None of that anymore. And that goes retroactively. No, if you're not going to respect our laws, and you have a very low bar, you show up at a rally shouting "Death to America," you're gone. You show out of a very short list, a very short rope of allowing people to espouse their hatred of Western values in America. So a lot of deportation would be going on.
The problem that we have here in Australia is that they're Australians. They were born here, and they're naturalized Australians. Their parents might have been immigrants, but they're born here, and they're shouting "Gas the Jews" in front of the Sydney Opera House. They're Australian citizens.
Okay,
So what do we do with those people?
Well,
I don't like that speech.
Well, what about all these politicians who are so fond of hate speech laws?
That's the problem right there. Yeah, is that they don't enforce it the way that it should be. Because if I go out there inciting violence, then I get locked up straight away. But these people are allowed to do that at scale, and nobody gets locked up. And when somebody's shouting from the river to the sea, they're calling for the genocide and the destruction of an entire population of a country.
Yep.
That is inciting violence. Why aren't these people locked up? Why? Yep. Why? I want to know why. And it doesn't matter if you're a Muslim or a non-Muslim. If you're a supporter of that cause, you should be locked up. And if you don't like what I'm saying, I'm not calling for violence. I'm not saying violence is the way or violence is the answer, but all of these Muslims are. They're saying violence is the only way.
Right.
That's why I say none of this fits with our culture or our way of life. So, but how do you deport them? You can't deport them, and the government won't enforce the laws to lock them up. Listen, so what do we do?
I am actually for free speech. So if they want to spout their garbage,
but they're inciting violence, Ed.
There you go. That's the difference, right?
Violence.
There you go. We got a nice brand new jail cell waiting for you. That we're putting you in. We're going to get you off the streets. You're certainly not going to be allowed to be a teacher. You're not going to be allowed. You're not going to be allowed
at a university.
Yeah. You're not going to be allowed in our school system. So you'll never get your teaching license. You'll never be able to run for office. There's something you're going to be disqualified for. So you gotta neuter these people as much as you can, and while trying to. But yeah, that might be a challenge. But right now they're not doing anything to curb the hatred being spread by these people. So anything you can do right now would be a big difference. And of course, there's going to be a big pushback because right now, as you know, my theory is the two biggest sources of the degradation of our societies are a really bad school system and really bad parenting. And it's all coming home to roost because these leftists have been they've been in control of our school system now for a couple of generations. So now the parents themselves are products of this indoctrination process. And so that's it. The parents don't push back against this evil that's being taught to our children because they believe in that evil themselves. So the idea that a child can go in for gender assignment surgery when they're 12 years old without informing the parents, I don't see any problem with that. This is what the world has come to. So the degradation of society. This is this is kind of funny because I know that, off camera, I asked you once, I sent you a message saying, so Rob, Poland, broke my heart recently. They've been
Mm.
they've been a stalwart against the leftists, against liberalism, but they recently voted in a woke president. So I'm worried that now Poland is now going to fall victim to this wokeism. And if you're in Poland, please, I'd love to hear from you. Are my fears well founded, or am I overthinking it? But I'm really worried about Poland. But my message to Rob was, well, Rob, America is going to shit. Australia is going to shit. Where can we move to? What are our options? For me, Poland used to be an option. Look at Poland, nice traditional values. They got things figured out. The women know that they're women. The men know that they're men. So maybe Poland.
Maybe Holland.
And maybe and now with this election, I'm thinking, well, Rob, maybe St. Petersburg, maybe Russia, maybe
Maybe Argentina's on the cards as well.
maybe. So I'd
We
love
could
to
live
hear,
like kings down there.
so I'd love to hear from the audience. Any ideas of nice, societies out there that are still intact?
I want to close the loop on that terrorism thing. I think part of the problem with the expansion of the conflict in the Middle East is that all of these freaks, all of these Muslim pedophile freaks that are here in Australia, they all want to participate, but they're all too scared because they're gutless. They have no balls and they wouldn't know the butt of a rifle from its muzzle. They don't know what to do. So what they do is they attack society here, and they'll attack innocent people. They'll run them over with cars. They'll stab them in the street. They'll shoot them. They'll blow them up. They'll do whatever they can to try and get even. But what they don't understand is the vast majority of the Australian population are not paying any attention to anything that's going on overseas because they're too busy worried about how they're going to pay their mortgage and put food on the table. They do not care about international geopolitics whatsoever. But we've seen in the last 10 years, from the year 2000, when 9/11 happened around there, just after 2001, all the way up to 2020, terrorism was a big thing in Australian society. I think they spent hundreds of millions of dollars on this and nothing ever happens. There's been a few things here and there, and they head a few things off at the pass before it actually goes on. But it affects all of us. It affects us at the airport. It affects you when you get on the train. The concrete barriers that are everywhere, it affects you. And that's why I say that it's the number two thing that's going to affect us. And the government is preparing your mind, particularly in the United States, for attacks. There is no border anymore. So all of these people are coming across, and the attacks can come from them. The attacks could come apparently from the Confederates, from the right-wing extremists, whomever they might be. Those attacks are scheduled for you guys there in the United States. And it's a deliberate obfuscation of what potentially could happen. In the movie Leave the World Behind, they do a good job. Was it the North Koreans? Was it the Russians? Was it the Chinese? You don't know who it is throughout the movie, and they create the chaos of what's going on there. And I thought that was actually really well done. But they're actually doing that to you in the United States in real time right now. And here in Australia, we've got all of these Islamic extremists that are calling for the death and destruction and the genocide of an entire nation of people. Nobody's doing anything about it. So I think that that's deliberate as well. I think the authorities are deliberately allowing that to happen. So when it does happen, whether it's real or it's a false flag, it doesn't matter. They get control over everybody in society, because then all of a sudden, remember that there was that idiot, that shoe bomber idiot that tried to blow up a plane with a bomb in his shoe. And now every time you go through the TSA, you got to take your shoes off and put them on the thing. Yep. Like, what the hell? Like, that affects every single person, right?
Yep.
And so the same thing will happen here in our societies. If some of that shit goes on, it's going to affect you, because the authorities are going to make you in there, take your shoes off, and it's all going on like that. So yeah.
And of course, now I think that if there is a terrorist attack, I think it's got to happen. The odds are it's going to happen. They're going to be, and there's probably going to be a wave of them. It's probably going to be coordinated. We're probably going to have a week of disasters of terrorism throughout the country, at different spots, different shopping malls, different schools, different venues. Okay, but something tells me that the deep state kind of wouldn't mind. I mean, they'll say how terrible it is, and that they're going to gear up to fight it. But really, what it does is it takes our minds off of the little shiny objects that distract us from the evil things that they are doing, that they want to accomplish. Things like devaluing our dollar, things like promoting, transgenderism in the school system, things that the people that the American public does not want. But we got to get their mind up. We got to shift their focus away so we can get our stuff done without too much pushback. So we'll give them something else to worry about. What do you think? What do you think about
People
that?
always say to me, "Oh, it's all bullshit. It's all conspiracy theories, tinfoil hat wearing stuff." Rob, why do you give that any attention? Oh well, there was a real-time CIA operation that happened in the last couple of days where Qasem Soleimani, the commemoration of him being blown up by a Hellfire missile at Baghdad airport was there, and there was a couple of bombs that have gone off when all of these so-called mourners are going out to worship some dead dude who was like a war criminal. And it's really strange, man. They what would you say? They canonize their generals, but do they, or are they forced to go out there and follow along with that? And wouldn't it be just the best thing if we could just create complete and total internal chaos inside of Iran to stop all of this Houthi bullshit and all of this war in Israel? Well, yeah, of course it would. But instantly, literally 5 minutes after the second bomb went off in Iran, there's someone at the Pentagon it wasn't us. Why would we do that? And then there's no reason that the Israelis would do that. What would they get out of it? Well, they sow complete and total and absolute chaos in Iranian society. That's what they get out of it. That's what everyone gets out of it. And the whole point is it creates a giant distraction for the Iranian government, so they can't focus on what's going on over here on the war because they have to focus on the internal side of things. Because the reason that the Iranians were quiet, they shut their mouth and ran away with their tail between their legs when Ronald Reagan destroyed half their navy in an afternoon, was because if you keep going, if you keep being a smart ass and you keep provoking us, we'll destroy the rest of your navy. And if you keep going after that, we're going to come after you because we know exactly where you are. And the thing that dictatorial regimes never want to lose, they never want to lose power. They never want to go away. And so they'll have to squash that revolution. They'll have to crush that. It doesn't matter what cost it is. We'll kill all of those people. We'll kill our own people. We'll do whatever we need to do to maintain power. That's what they're doing. And why wouldn't you create and sow chaos like that? Why wouldn't you do that? It's definitely the Israelis or the Americans or someone else creating chaos. Maybe even the Saudis doing it to create total chaos. And I wouldn't be surprised if it happened again. But that sort of thing that happened in Iran just in the last couple of days, that's going to happen in our societies as well.
Yep.
You're going to see that in the United States at scale. We'll probably see that here in Australia as well with the expansion of the conflict in the Middle East. And it's all about trying to get control of you as an individual. They want to control every aspect of your life. You will not go outside without your mobile phone on you. If you don't have your phone on you, you're going to get fined. And you probably get arrested as well. We need to track you're a potential terrorist. You need to check in here. You need to do this. You don't want to go out. You're under house arrest. You have to. Oh man, it's coming.
Well, yeah, we're going to see implementation of digital IDs that you're going to have if you want to fly on a plane. You're going to have that digital ID. You're probably going to need digital proof of the double jab that they want you to have in your arm
that's what all the QR codes are, right? You got to scan here, like this, do that. But the technology has evolved to a point where you just put an app on your phone. You don't need to scan anything anywhere. Nobody's looking at it. It's like the collection of metadata. Yeah. So the government can now access your Gmail. They don't need to worry. They can just access it.
Yeah.
Go for it. Yeah. And it's the metadata that they're collecting. They collect server farms of metadata. So they know if you ever committed a crime, we just go back, look at your IP address. We can see all the metadata of everything you've done. And then we can use that as evidence against you.
Look, even if you haven't committed a crime, but they want to get you, it's like the Russian guy said, just, show me the man and I'll find you the crime.
It's the Edward Snowden stuff. If you go back and look at why Edward Snowden came out and did what he did and he defected, the idea of the Patriot Act after 9/11 happened was to actually use that to find terrorism. But after all of that had been sorted out, we went to Afghanistan, we went to Iraq, and they did all of that. The Patriot Act remained, and in fact, they increased the
Oh yeah.
velocity of those laws. You did that in the United States. They did the same thing here in
Yep.
Australia. They did it in Canada. All the Five Eyes had it. All the NATO nations have that same ability where they can just type in somebody's phone number. I remember seeing it. You just type in somebody's phone number on the front end and it just gives you everything, all the history of that person, where they are, their driver's license, their address, their emails, everything to do with that person. The digital footprint of that person comes from you, one single thing. And there's just no way to maintain anonymity in the modern world. And if all of this terrorism bullshit goes on, we're drifting into that level of society. And with AI over the top of it, with quantum computing over the top of it, it's very easy for the powers that be to actually put this all together. It's a very
Yeah.
dystopian world that we're moving into, and we're at the very dawn of it this year, 2024.
I agree. I agree. And we talked a lot about this on a podcast, that this is why there has to be a World War III. They have to have a major event in order to implement these last final set of policies to completely steal off, rob us of our freedoms. They have to have
Yep.
it, because otherwise people are going to resist. But if you make it an existential threat. No, we have to do this. We have to collect all your personal data. We have to know where you are at all times. We have to. So they need that big existential, threat, event. That's why I think there has to be a World War III. It doesn't have to be a nuclear war. Maybe it's just a series of terrorist attacks big enough to scare the hell out of people that will allow them to give in, to acquiesce. And yeah, I think this year, I just kind of feel it. They're going to be. That's why I think this year, 2024, is going to be a disastrous year for the world on many levels. Disastrous for freedom-loving people. For the evil cabal out there, it's going to be payday.
A victory.
Yep.
I would say my closing thought, Ed, is to everybody watching and listening. If you've made it this far, thank you for supporting us. But my closing thought is don't succumb to normalcy bias. I've suffered from that recently a lot, where Kim Jong-un comes out the other day and says we should prepare to completely annihilate South Korea and the United States if they threaten us again. And you go, whatever, man. Like I just scroll to the next article or watch the next video. I just don't care. Like and that the problem with that is if you rewind the clock and you went back to say 2014 and Kim Jong-un said that, you'd be like, whoa, man, this is like really serious. But now every other day, someone's threatening nuclear war. China threatened in Xi Jinping's New Year's speech that Taiwan will be reunified. Whether you like it or not, it's going to be reunified. We should do it. Come on, let's do it. He's trying to play the nice guy about it. But we've only got this year for that to actually happen. Because if Donald Trump gets back in there, we're going to go up against him. But if Brandon is there and Xi Jinping goes for it, not much is going to happen, despite the fact that we could probably stop it and shut it down. It's just not going to happen. So the window of opportunity for Xi Jinping is actually closing. And when you look at the time of year, because of the rough weather and the seas and to do an invasion and all of that stuff, the window is closing. The blockade will come, the Air Force will come, the missiles will rain down, and then the assault will come. And that's just a matter of time. And that will roll out not in one afternoon. That will roll out over a period of months when the blockade begins with all of that. And then we go, okay, we'll block you. The Chinese Navy is blockading Taiwan. We blockade everything coming out of everything that's going to China gets stopped by our navies up further in the Indian Ocean. And the Chinese don't have the ability to do anything. The Chinese will just shrug their shoulders and go, whatever, stop it all. It's going to hurt you more than it hurts us. We're self-sufficient here. We can outlast you and outsuffer you. Watch this. And then it's just going to progress in there. Just the normalcy bias around all of these things, I think you have to recognize that in yourself. It's not normal. These things are not normal. These wars are not normal. This chaos is not normal. The destruction of the financial system deliberately is not normal. So that's why you've got to prepare for it. And if you're a little bit more sensitive to it because you're not suffering from that normalcy bias, you'll be more protected and you'll be able to protect yourself and go, well, yeah, maybe I should get some gold and silver. Maybe I should preserve the value of the wealth that I have. Maybe I should think about that passive recurring income. Maybe I should protect my family a little bit better than what I'm doing because he's never going to launch the nuke. They're never going to invade Taiwan. That's not going to affect me. That won't do anything. It will more and harder than you actually think it will.
Lots of fun, Rob. As always, thanks for taking the time, man. I don't know how many people. I'd love to. Did anybody of you hang out all day through the talk? Let us know in the comment section. Let us know what you think.
Either way, we're chatting, so it's
Yeah,
all good.
that's right. This is what Rob and I do all the time. So, thanks everyone for joining us. Rob, see you tomorrow, probably. Thanks,
Thanks,
buddy.
Ed. See you, mate.
Happy
Bye,
New Year.
everyone. All right, good job, man.
Yeah, that was fun. Thanks, man.
Did you get it all off your chest?
No, I
What's
got
missing?
I got more,
What do we
man.
miss?
I got more, man.
So tell me, I meant to ask you, but I forgot. I wrote it down, but I forgot to ask you. Will there be an election?
Ooh, interesting question.
Isn't it?
Yeah, I do think there'll be election. There is a fair chance that they'll conjure up some kind of tragedy, some kind of national security, some kind of martial law event that they'll impose. There's a chance. I don't put anything past the leftists. I can see them trying to conjure something up. That's possible. Zelensky style. Kibosh on elections. Sure. But something tells me, though, that the American people, that would be an event there would be an actual revolution, I think, if that happened. And literal guns would come out of people's closets and march on Washington if that were to happen.
Copy that.